Hello there, Scan here, and I'm coming back at you with another Arma 3 classroom. Today we're going to add on to where we left off. Last video we did booting up, which basically went over if you got the game brand new, kind of where to orientate yourself. Some key helpful tips, adjusting your settings, things like that to make the game work in your favor. Today we're going to go ahead and take the next step and get a little bit more specific. Um, this would be probably one of the top skills if you can consider both of them being one skill. Um, they're technically two, but this is navigation and communication. So last time we made a, a map. Let's go ahead, jump in the editor. Ours was on Stratus. Excuse me, got a little frog in my throat. So um, basically, you're probably asking yourself, well, what's the purpose of navigation and communication? Shouldn't I learn how to shoot? Shouldn't I learn how to you know uh, edit maps? Shouldn't I learn how find a group and things like that? And yeah, those are all good, um, but anybody can shoot. Um, here's our classroom. Anybody can shoot, like I said. It really depends on kind of how you look at things. Um, in today's age, 2017, anybody can play a game and shoot. But I play with two very different groups of guys. I run a milsim unit, and I play with a couple guys on Wasteland, Exile, and things like that. And I can see a tremendous difference whenever I play with my milsim guys on those same types of scenarios. Um, and it's really annoying. It's a pet peeve, kind of. So as a new player, this is probably one of the biggest skills I would learn really fast. So we've went ahead, we booted it up. Here's our guy, everything we did last time. We're not going to change any of this. Let's just go right ahead, play scenario. Um, so today we're going to kick this off with navigation. Navigation is very easy. So we're going to go ahead, put our weapon down. If you want to know what that control is, for me it's double left control. I don't know what it is for the Arma 3 guys, um, but it just helps clear our view out because we can have a lot of different features right here. I gotta get his hand out of the way. So let's go ahead and jump in straight into navigation. So for me, my key is M. Like I said in my very first video of this particular series, you guys need to learn your keys. So mine is M for map. We're gonna go ahead and pull up this map. Um, Once you get this up, if it looks like this, cool. If it doesn't, leave it alone. If it looks like this, a lot of people like this because it's really pretty to the eye. Um, it's just, you got the greens and the contours, you can kind of see where the hills are, vaguely, right here. Um, it's what I call a satellite map. It's what everybody calls really a satellite map. Um, but notice that you can't see these names. Names are in brown. So you can't really see. But if we zoom in, let's say right in here, if we zoom in, tell me if you can't see something right into here. If we zoom in more, you start seeing these little lines, but notice if I go way out here, I can't see them. So let's go ahead and set up our map. So up here, top right hand corner, you have your time, and then you have textures. Go ahead and click it once. It should go to this. If you have this one and you made the mistake and went like this, go ahead and do it back. This right here can recenter you on map, but you don't need to because we can see where we are. Alright, so setting up our map, before we get into contour lines, before we get into, hills and all that stuff, we need to learn how this map is actually created, how it is structured. And it's structured exactly like a military map. Not a true military map, but close enough. Because a true military map would have like, I think it's like 3 different times of norths. It would be it would be a standard size. It would have a block number and everything like that, like AG, GS. It'd have a number and stuff like that. This doesn't have this. So as we move in, to this area, so we zoom all the way out. We see all of Stratus. Stratus is very, very tiny compared to the other maps. This right here, as I go one click in, whenever we get these, now if you, sometimes in Altus, like if you zoom all the way out, you'll see huge blocks. Um, you don't really have to have. I think those are like 10 kilometers by 10 kilometer squares. Don't worry about those. Those are nothing. These smaller squares about like this, these are a kilometer by a kilometer. Um, and it literally goes kilometer by a kilometer high. So how to really understand this? So everything is done in the metric system. So kilometers, they're not miles, they're kilometers. The other word is clicks. There is, you know, a big difference. You hear some of these people try, I'm 2 clicks out, and in reality they're 1 or they're 5. They don't really understand. Um, you don't. The thing is in MilSim and in this game, um, navigation is probably the most important thing. Now you could probably sit here and argue, well, you know, Squad has navigation. Um, Rainbow Six Siege has a form of navigation. You have to know where I don't look at those as navigation. Yeah, I would say Squad probably has a similar navigation system to this, but it's not in depth. I mean, you're looking at Squad maybe being, what, a kilometer by a kilometer, maybe 2 by 2. I mean, you're looking at this. This is I mean, there's maps that are 200 kilometers squared. You're talking about a huge battlefield and area. So as for Siege, it's more of like space-time, but the communication is there for Siege. So Arma 3 is completely different, and if you try to play Arma 3 like any other game, you're going to fail very bad. If you try to use those other navigation skills and those other communication skills in this, you're going to fail very bad. They might help you in some aspects, but if you don't learn, you're not going to do very good. So, knowing that this is a kilometer, and then as we move in, these are 100-meter squares. So notice that it went from a big block to a bunch of blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's a main line. There's a main line. 10 by 10. So we got our 100-meter squares. We got our clicks. Okay. So this is where you will reference everything in chunks. Okay. So let's say I am trying to get to Air Station Mike 26. Well, just looking off of this, I would say I'm easily 2 clicks out. Easily 2 clicks. But you're probably sitting here asking, well, it's 1, 2, and then it's in the third box. Well, I'm at the end of this box, so it really doesn't matter, where I am in space-time unless I'm way over here. So if I'm right here, and then this one is slightly in, I would say those two cancel each other out. I'm about 2 clicks. So let's go ahead and double check. Shift click. About 3.1. So yeah, I mean, it can vary quite a bit. But the thing you have to remember, especially in this, and especially in this, is if you're giving that out, where are you? I'm roughly about 2 clicks out. That kind of stems into really communication. So we'll go more in depth of why, why were you a click and a click point 1 off, things like that. There's different variations that you need to send. What we're really looking at here is how to find you and how to find roughly about the area where you're trying to go, and kind of seeing the key features and things in between. It's really what this is about. So everything is in meters, everything is standard. You don't do feet. If I'm correct, it's like 3 feet roughly average. It's about, a meter is about like a yard. I think there's small deviations, point variations in it, but I mean they're relatively close. So the main thing you want to pull out of this little section right here: kilometers, meters, 100 meters, squares, things like that. Okay, now we're going to jump right into grid coordinates. How do you relate where you are to somebody else? You don't want to say, last thing you want to say is, I am 1, 2, 3, 3 1/4 grids down, 2 grids from the left-hand side. No sense in doing that. It literally does not help. If you want to tell someone what kilometer you're in, you go up here. If I can get it, yeah, right there. You go right here, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 5. I can say I am at 0, 1, 0, 5. And that will tell them what kilometer. Now, if you're downloading like an ACE mod where you have medical and you're passing out, don't give somebody a 4-digit grid. Nobody ever uses a 4-digit grid. Maybe for AOs, hey, we are going to be in the AO of 0, 1, 0, 5, 0, 2, 0, 5. Now basically we're going to be in this 2 kilometer space. Don't use that. That's where you come in and you have these. You have these up here. Okay, so what I've always learned is walls, floors, and ceilings. Okay, so or floors mainly. Walls, floors, walls, floors. So a lot of people look at this and go, okay, how do I read this? And they will normally read here to here, but that's completely wrong. Okay, so if I'm trying to tell you where I am at grid because this is a wall. I always go left to right, top to bottom. So notice left to right, I'm the only numbers that are increasing is this are walls. If I go top to bottom, or either way, however you find it, I always use top to bottom. So I actually go in reverse. So top to bottom, because to me it seems easier. Then you can hit the floors, basically floor, floor, floor. And what this is if I'm trying to get to this square right here, how I read it is if I go, okay, well, I'm closer to this intersection, why don't I just go here and then here? Well, that's because if you use this particular line, anything that you use on a floor, it is that of a floor. That means you're talking about the space up on top of it. And if you're talking about a wall, you're talking about the space to the right of it. That's why it goes this direction. That's why these numbers increase as they go up. So I am at grid 0, 1, 8, 0, 5, 7. If I'm using a mod and I'm passed out, on a tarmac, somebody's going to find me. But if I'm out in the woods or in the jungle on Tanoa, nobody's going to find me in that. If I'm trying to be quiet, playing PvP, I have ACE and stuff like that enabled. I don't want to get seen. I need to be a little bit more specific. So, how are we gonna fixate this? Well, there's 2 key ways. One, you do an 8-digit grid instead of a 6. These are digits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice if I hover over in the middle, 0, 8, 1, or 0, 1, 8, 0, 5, 7. It's 6 digits. So how do I make an 8-digit grid? It's too easy. If you zoom all the way in, it does nothing. These squares, the smallest squares you will get is 100 meters by 100 meters. Well, what's 100 meters divided by 10? 10. Well, if I do that, divide this up in roughly 10 to the right, 10 to the, 10 squares, then I can look at those. So if I zoom in and fill this up, which makes it help, and then I hover and yeah, I'm down here, so let's just say I'm in this particular square. Okay, so again, walls. So I would say I'm roughly at about a 9 going on the wall. And then on the floor, I'm definitely at a 1. So if I'm trying to translate that, I would go 0, 1, 8, 9, 0, 5, 7, 1. That puts me within about 10 meters. So as long as I stay there, somebody's going to be within 10 meters. You can find people in 10 meters. And you can even go further into that by cutting that tiny little square that you just made into 10 and doing a 10-digit grid. The only time you really ever need to do that is never, um, to be honest, unless you're trying to do specific artillery and things like that. 9 times out of 10, this is roughly where you're going to be at. Now you're probably asking yourself, well, Skahan, how is that even easy? That's really hard to do. Because, you got to figure it up and you could be way off. Yes, you can. An easier version and a most common version of breaking that 100 meter square down is keypads. So if you take your keypad on your keyboard, pull it off, just a 1 to the 9, take all those and put it in there, that's roughly about what you have, is a keypad. So if I were to try to relate where I am, I'm at 0, 1, 8, 0, 5, 6, keypad 3. That basically, roughly what a keypad does is something similar to the, something similar to the 8-digit grid. It breaks the 100 meters down. Now, an 8-digit grid breaks it down 10 by 10, which is definitely more accurate. A keypad is a 33.33 remaining, or repeating. That's how many meters it cuts down. So 33 meters is a little bit rough area to kind of look in, but it does narrow that 100 meters down, which is very good. Generally speaking, that is easy enough. So you can say, hey, I'm at grid 0, 1, 8, 0, 5, 7, keypad 3. I have enemy contact at 0, 1, 9, 0, 5, 8, keypad 2. And short, sweet, to the point. Okay, so I recommend using keypad. 6-digit grids all the time. If you're really trying to get into, some craziness, you're doing PvP and you really want to throw people into a kind of a really weird area, you could use 8-digit grids because not a lot of people know what that is. And if you're really, really, really good, you could do 10-digit grids or phonetic countermeasures. So basically what a phonetic countermeasure is I could be at, you can split it up into zones with your buddies and say I'm at Alpha 018, Bravo 057, keypad 3, keypad within a keypad 5. So basically, if I split this up into keypads and then keypad within a keypad, so I take that little 3, put a keypad inside of it, 5, I'm right in the middle of there. So it basically just brings it down again. So that's really what I want to convey to you as a start. That's really what you need to focus on. This next is a bearing. So we got our handy dandy compass here. You get bigger or not. Okay, so I apologize, I'm not going to fight the compass today. You have this ring, okay? A compass is a ring. It's 360 degrees in a ring, in a circle, right? There's this ring around the top. It goes 2, 4, 6, 8, pretty much into 2s all the way around. These are mils. Don't use the mils. This top key, don't use it. I've heard people do it. It's dumb. It makes you sound really stupid. If you say I'm at 22 degrees and you're looking, right here, look, here's 20 degrees. Here's roughly about 22. But then notice right here is 90 degrees. So you're actually telling somebody that you're over this direction, when in reality you're over this direction on the map. So you use the inner ring. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but we'll go through it. Here's the degrees. Now, how do I find out, what is degrees? How do I relate this into space-time? Well, go back into your guy here. My key is double K. Hit double K or whatever your compass is, and you'll see it comes up. and you're holding it just like a military compass would be used. Okay, so you have the little bar on the top that's up in the clouds right now. This is your sight. It's your sight line. So what you want to do is you want to normally put it, you can put it halfway. Don't put it up like this. If I'm trying to find out where that rock is, put it either halfway or almost to the top. Zoom in, put it almost to the top, zoom out, there you go. And what that does is that gives you a little bit of topographical knowledge, some terrain knowledge as you're looking at this. So then you take that and you look down at the dial. Roughly I am at about, I would say, halfway through, so it only goes 100, 120. That little line has to be 110. I'm halfway between that. That is 115. So that rock is 115 degrees. But if you say, there's a rock that's like a kilometer away and it's 115 degrees, you could be anywhere. So you need to look for key terrain models or key features. So there's a rock, but look behind it slightly. There's a tower. So if I pop this back up, zoom in, again, zoom in, line, release, I have a communications tower and notice that it's slightly moved. That slight move is very important. You can say, I have a communications tower on top of a hill. I'm down in an airstrip. That communications tower is roughly 118 degrees from me. But that doesn't tell, how do you tell somebody where you are if they're not with you? Obviously. But how do you relate that to them? How can they translate that? Well, you can do it one of two ways. You can have a communication system where you give them the degrees and they do or what we call an azimuth, because this is a line. We shot an azimuth. We shot a line to this area. That's an azimuth. Our azimuth to that tower is roughly 118 degrees. Now, how do you translate that to where they can find you? Well, if they know where that tower is, then they can go to that tower, but if they look 118 degrees, they're going to be looking directly away from you. This is where you convert it into a back azimuth. Back azimuth, either you or the other person you're trying to communicate to, you can do what's called a back azimuth. Now, I'm going to go back into my map. So basically what this is if we take from here the 0 and right here the 180, anything that is over in this area, you add 180 degrees to. If it's over in this area, you subtract 180. The reason you subtract is because if you're at 340 and add 180, then you're going to have to go, okay, well, 360 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with the remainder. Just subtract it. It's 10 times easier. So, for example, if I'm at 90 degrees, my back azimuth is 270 degrees. If it's at 0 degrees, my back azimuth is 180 degrees. See how I added it? And as you go past it, you subtract it. That's basically how you do it. Okay? So that's shooting a back azimuth. It's very important to know a back azimuth because you need to get back roughly to where you're trying to go. Alright, so now that that's done, we've done the compass, we've done pretty much a majority of the map. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Contour lines. This is the next thing that will help you define where you are in space-time. Now, key things on a map: water is blue, forest and vegetation is green, man-made objects are gray or black in color, roads are brown or white depending on hardball or softball, things like that. So basically we're going to look at contour lines. Contour lines tell you the change in elevation. Now you're probably asking, well, how the hell is that possible? Well, basically it's because of these lines. Now in traditional maps, I believe it's like 20 meters go in between lines. So the further the lines are spaced out, that means the gradual the hill. The closer together, the steeper the hill. Okay? So how do you figure this out? Well, we need to in order to figure out contour lines and how to read a map correctly, we need to learn key terrain features. Let's find us some terrain features here. Here's a good area to start with. We have this big blob, but if we zoom in, we see this little circle right here with a dot. It says 86. If you look around it and it says .80.83, this would be the top of the hill, the peak, the very summit of the hill, of this particular hilltop. If we see that, that is our first key terrain feature, a hill. Our next one is a ridge. So if we look back out and then we look at right here, well, there's a hilltop, and then well, here's a hilltop, and then as we go up we still see these circles. What happens is there's a hilltop, there's another hilltop over here. This is a ridge line, excuse me. This is a ridge line. This is the second key terrain feature. Okay, now between a ridge and another ridge, which would be right here, this is a ridge, this is a ridge, there's a valley. So as we can see, if this is the highest point, as we go down, notice that this points towards the lowest area. This will always go downhill because as you're going, but notice the valley, it goes from the top, it's complete opposite. Okay, so the arrows will drive towards the ocean, just like if we go on this side. Arrows drawing towards the ocean, valleys pointing inland. Okay, that's roughly about how you can figure that one out. Okay, now between each hilltop here and here, there's what we call a saddle. If you want to see a saddle, go away. Right there's a saddle. Notice that you can, if you had a big giant and you could set him in that, and that's a saddle. The front part, which would be right, I cut off, and then the second part would be right where I cut off, and right in the middle where that low ground is, that's where the saddle is. Okay? So that's basically what a saddle is. Hilltop, saddle, hilltop. Everything right here in the screen is a ridge. Okay? In the far distance. Okay, depressions. Now depressions, I would have to spend as much time as I possibly could to find one on this map. I'm not going to. Those are basically look like a hilltop, but they will normally have a lower point. So a good example of this would be, for example, let's say that this says 118, 117. Let's say over here is 118, right? And then this says 115 or 110. That means there is a depression. Something has hit that. It's lower than the rest of the surrounding area. It looks kind of like a bowl. Some other key terrain that you need to understand. Spurs. How do I find a spur? Well, right here is probably the best spur I've ever seen. This is a spur. Notice that this is the back of the boot. It comes around. There's the spur, and then here's the base of the boot. This will always point at those are the arrows, basically. It will always point to lower ground. Now, just like hilltop, you know, the ridges, that's basically what it is. A ridge is a giant spur, whereas these are smaller spurs off of hilltops and ridges and things like that. And then you have this area on either side that make the spur. See how it inland cuts and this bulges out, inland cuts. This is the spur because it bones out. This is a draw. Draws are very, they can vary in size, depth, length, direction. Sometimes they can kind of make a loop, sort of. I would say like a half loop, where they can cut around. Different things like that. It just depends on the fucking map. So, and then a cliff. So how do we see a cliff? Well, let's say that these are 20. This line's 20, this line, between this is 20 meters. And that's like it for everywhere. So if I'm saying 20, 20, 20, and then all of a sudden I'm dropping 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, that means whenever I get to this point right here, it's going to be a cliff. So let's go ahead and mark that area. And since we do have Zeus, we're going to go ahead and Zeus, and let's fly over here. And sure enough, let's double check, make sure this is it. Yep, that's it. And notice that if we get right here, yeah, I would say that would be a cliff. So that's roughly what a cliff looks like. Going in here, looking here, and let's get a better angle. Valley, ridge lines, here right here, this area right here, and this area right here. This is a spur, this is depression, this is a saddle, this is a saddle, hilltop, hilltop, ridge line. Okay, and then obviously cliff. Let's get out of that. Okay, and that pretty much does it for navigation. Now, let's talk a little bit about communication. Now that you know where you are in space-time, you know where you are roughly, you know where you're going, you can communicate that in your head. Always have a notepad and pen next to your table and get this, you know, just write stuff down. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, how do I communicate that to somebody else? What are the basics of communication? And these are the building blocks. Now, I'll do a lot in communication. There's tons and tons and tons of information about communication, and you're never a master at communication. So the basic structure of a communication word, or a word. So I'm just going to double click. So how you do it is, hey you, this is me, over. So if you remember this little phrase, it will help you. So if I remember, hey you, this is me, and you're using radios, or you know, you're on a huge TeamSpeak, if you're with some buddies, obviously they're going to know your voice. But if you're trying to talk over net, you know, nobody knows your voice except for maybe you and your friends. So, hey you, this is me. So if I'm talking to Bob, let's say right here, here's Bob. Bob's right here. I'm trying to tell him, Bob, where I am. How to start a conversation is, Bob, this is Skahan, over. Bob will reply, and we'll go ahead and make his submission red. And how he will reply is, Skahan, this is Bob, go ahead. Excuse me for my atrocious spelling sometime. So Bob responded to me. So this is dialogue. Bob, this is Skahan, over. Skahan, this is Bob, go ahead. Basically what he's saying is, okay, I'm Bob. Skahan, I'm Bob. I'm listening, go ahead. Now, that's the basic structure. And that's the basic structure of a sentence, of communications. That's how you talk to each other in this game, especially over like mods, Task Force Radio, things like that. If you're with your friends, be like, hey Bob, you know, I'm at this area, which you're taking a lot of this dialogue out. These transmissions should be roughly about 5 to 7 seconds per transmission. So if I have this huge, long, crazy sentence that I'm going to tell Bob, or let's make Steve, because Bob and Steve is awesome. You know, let's say I'm trying to communicate to Steve, Bob being my military buddy, Steve being my homeboy. So let's try some dialogue with Steve. So we switch over. Steve, pretty much how I would say, hey Steve. And then he would be like, yo. right there. So military or milsim communities and Arma 3 communities normally with your buddies. Okay. So how do we do this? So if I was talking to Steve and I'm at grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, getting shot from the east. I'm west of target 20 meters. Put an ME, but but notice this is a long sentence. Well, that's just me talking to my buddy through TeamSpeak. Well, how do I talk to people in milsim communities? My location is grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Break. Okay. What a break is literally you let off the radio. You stop transmitting. This is if you're using mods like Task Force Radio and things like that. Break. Then let's go ahead and get the other part. Getting shot from the east. Taking fire east of my position. And then you would break, so I'm not going to type break every time. So every time this would be a break, so you would say break and then let off. So it would be my location is grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, break. Taking fire east of my position, break. Okay, and then distance to enemy 20 meters. So if I'm talking to my buddy over here, Steve, it's like, Steve, yo, what's up? I'm at grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, getting shot from the east. I'm about 20 meters away from the target. But in milsim, it's my location is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, break. Taking fire from the east of my position, break. Distance to enemy 20 meters. And then you would say end this by saying over. Okay. He would acknowledge. Now that we got roughly about what the basic structures are, what are some key terms not to do? Do not ever say, well, first off, over is kind of like a period. It means I'm done with my sentence, it's your turn to talk. Whereas out is I'm done talking to you. So if you're like, Skahan, why is the sky blue? Because God loves the infantry, out. I'm not giving you a chance to speak. I'm basically telling you, shut up, I got other stuff to do. If you do that, and you're trying to ask somebody for help, hey, I need help. Yeah, I'll be there in 5 minutes. What do I need to bring? And then you respond, guns, out. They're probably not going to come. If you're going to be a dick. But if you're communicating as much knowledge as you possibly can, don't get excessive. There's a right amount. And it's hard to judge based on situation. So out is you're done. Over is you're handing that baton over, telling the guy, hey, I'm listening to you, it's your turn to respond. Okay? Now what happens if you can't hear the person? Their mic's messed up. If you say what you say if you want them to repeat the question is say again. Never ever ever say repeat. Never say repeat unless you're dealing with artillery. Too many times repeat what you said and I instantly just start cringing. So let's say we are right here, that black dot. Our buddy is right here. Let's make him red. And then we're fighting here. And let's go ahead and make this a yellow dot. Right, here's the enemy. And this blue dot that I'm about to put is where we called artillery. Okay? We called artillery on that point. Once artillery hits, I begin to move up. My buddy Steve here gets on the radio and says, repeat that last message. And even though he's talking repeat the last message, the guy who's doing artillery is instantly going to start firing again. As soon as he hears that word repeat, because it could be in a code phrase, repeat that, you don't want to say repeat artillery. You could just say repeat. And then all of a sudden, I'm over here now, artillery's hitting your butt, you just killed your buddy. So always, if you can't hear a radio message, say again. Can you say that again? Say again, over. Get repeat out of your vocabulary, because it's going to get you and somebody else killed. And those are pretty much the main 4 that we're going to dive into today. Now, what kind of information do you need to send? You need to send your location or anybody else that you see, roughly. So if the enemy's right here and I'm right here, I'm going to say friendlies at 029, 062, 029, 061. Enemies at 030, 062, 030, 061. So that basically tells them that this line right here, and how I did that is I just held control, just for you guys' knowledge. So hold control and left click drag. This line is the barrier. Over here, these 2 grids are hostile, these 2 grids friendly. Okay? That's basically what that is. So you can send that message. You don't want to send, if you got guys back here, here, you don't want to go 029, 062, 029, 061, 028, 061, 028, 060, 029, that's just too much numbers. You could say a point reference. You could say 029, 061, 1 click north and south is the line. Friendly area behind. All enemies are forward of us are east of us. And basically what that tells me is, okay, you're here, and here, 1 click is good, and everything in the rear, in the west, is cleared. All the enemy are in front of you. Okay? So always start out being always be courteous, but always saying who you are. Too many times is, I need help. I don't know who you are, but if you give me a name, then I'll be able to roughly help you. It kind of just builds that rapport. Now, what happens for you TFAR guys out there, for you guys, if you guys are just bullshitting and chatting, and all of a sudden you're in contact, or you see the enemy, or you see a mine, or you see something really important? How do you stop that? There's a universal shut the fuck up, basically, communication that you give. And that's called break, break, break. And I'm going to go ahead, break, 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 in that consecutive order. That's kind of like SOS. So break, if you just use break at the end of a sentence, then you got a long sentence, you're trying to chop it up. Break, break, break is universal shut up. And normally you would say break, 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 break. You would say that 3 times, so a total of 9 breaks. And if you hear that, you instantly need to stop talking. That means shut up and listen. I've got something very important to say. Now don't say break, 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 break. I need to go to the bathroom. Just go to the bathroom, man. Shut up. Don't start. This is where you have key information. So break, 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 break. There's a tank 20 meters ahead. It's heading right for us. We are in the open. Get down, get anti-tank out, get ready to engage it. We're not going to, we can't run away. Things like that. The last thing you want to do is hear break, 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 and whenever he stops, then go right back to starting, because his message hasn't been sent yet. So make sure his message is being sent. Now, if someone calls that, and halfway through their message, if somebody else says break, 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 That's wrong. If you hear it, if you're on the same radio or you're in the same channel, you hear somebody say that, don't interrupt their message because it's normally very, very important. If you don't do if you do it, then I mean it's literally going to be like, hey, I have something important to say. Here's what it is. And then if you interrupt them, then next time, this is me personally, next time you have something important to say, I would make like fart sounds and craziness. I would be so annoying that your message would never get through. And then hopefully you died. That'd be great. Um, in game, not in real life, of course. So this is an emergency, pretty much emergency number, what you would be broadcasting out. So really to wrap this up, I want to go into a little bit of why this is so important. Navigation and communication are probably the two biggest building blocks you need to learn. As a new player, as a veteran player, it always, 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 always can be improved. Your knowledge base for these two areas can always be improved. Now, there's only so much time for navigation. Communication is vast, but navigation, you're never a professional at it. You always, always, always have to practice. Um, Different terrain, different features, different things like that. Mountains, jungle, forest. Try navigating in the middle of a forest where you don't have your little blue dot, where you literally have to do lane navigation, and things of that nature. Um, like I said, Arma is totally different ball game. It's a totally different beast. It really, you can't really compare it to any other game. And if you try to bring other games here, you're just not going to do enough. You'll either be really good at communicating, in combat scenarios, but you're not good at communicating information. You need to be able to process information, break down that information, send out what you need that will get the message across. Like I said, 5 to 7 seconds. Hey you, this is me. Over. Hey, what's up? Hey, I'm taking fire at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Break. Contact east 20 meters. 5-man team. Break. Small arms, PMPKs, PKMs, um, AK-47s, RPGs, etc., etc., etc. So, without further ado, that pretty much wraps up what I have. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this is a building block maker. I hope you really, really this helps you a lot as a new player, as old players. I will be doing a lot more of these, a little bit or as much as I possibly can. These Arma 3 classrooms. This is a new series, kind of a set series that I really like. Um, I'm still getting a lot of comments, a lot of good feedback from my JTAC. If you're really interested on how to improve kind of what you did here, and you want a little bit of a more advanced study into it, go check out my video JTAC. Um, it's an older video. It's probably about 2, 3 years old now. But I'm still getting people who learn a lot out of it. That would be a severely advanced course. I would say like, let's say a level 8 course where you're at a level 1 now. I would definitely look at that in that kind of an aspect. But you can kind of expand your knowledge. It takes a little bit more in different situations and scenarios. So definitely check that video out. If you liked this video, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, I don't care. Hit dislike. This is knowledge, my knowledge. I love giving knowledge out. Knowledge is power. More knowledge we can put out there, more knowledge people has, could be better off, have better, wholesome gameplay. Like I said, if you guys really like this series, you want to know something, feel free to hit me up in the comments. Feel free to say, hey, I want to learn about, Armor. I've been playing this game for a long time now, and I'm pretty much seasoned in all aspects of it, some more than others. Um, I will be happy to answer your questions. I will be happy to make videos of it. That's all I got for today. Go forth and be badasses.